Hey everybody, it's your man James, Mix a Bunch of Treasures, back again with more video action for you. Again, this is not going to be necessarily a fun one, kind of like the last one I just did. It's going to be kind of sort of a continuation of this. I know we're all still reeling from the events that have just recently happened. It's still, bothering me to this day. That's probably part of the reason why I'm doing this video. But instead of focusing on that event itself, like I did yesterday or the other day, and just I thought I'd focus more on the fallout from that, and more specifically in the comic industry, which of course is what I've spent most of my time on this channel talking about. And you might think it seems a small thing, considering the event that happened, but they say politics is downstream of culture, and so I think this matters. And what we've been seeing more broadly with this event that we all just saw happen. I don't want to, go into the details of it again because that could be very, hurtful for some people. But the coarseness, the joy, the revelry of those who are happy that this happened, who are seeking, gratiation of themselves that this occurred, is something that has been a deep rot that's been growing for some time. And it's like I said, it's I talk about comics mostly, but we've seen this in the comic industry for a long time. I mean, you could almost say it was like a petri dish for what we're seeing now with this event, where this is now on the larger stage, but it all started smaller. It always does. These things always start small. And I thought it was important that we talked about this because what I see happening, it's very, not just disgusting, of course that's true, but it's very disheartening, and it's very worrying about where we're going as a society. And so I thought I would just take this time here to go through some golden oldies with you, as it were, and show you how this has all been building up within the comic industry itself, so that you can understand that what we're seeing now from this event shouldn't really be a surprise to anyone who's been paying any sort of attention. I've been doing this stuff for over 5 years, and so to me, to see what we've been seeing from some quarters is not a surprise at all. It is, in fact, all too expected. But I wanted to do this to sort of like a timeline of this, so you can kind of understand why it is like it is now. It didn't just happen overnight. It wasn't because of one man or one situation or one event. It's been something bubbling for quite a while, toxic brew, and we're only now beginning to see the real fruit of how deep the rot is running. And I think it's important to talk about this because it has to change. We can't let this go on the way it has. We've spent too much time brushing it off. It's just words, or it's just just anger, or it's just someone being edgy. But as this is going to show you, there's truly a thread that runs through this that is very, very dark and very, very troubling. And so I wanted to discuss this with you guys because I figure you guys, would understand better than anyone else. So let me share the screen here and get this stuff up for you. And we're going to start it with where we started it with yesterday. We all saw this. Now this is Gretchen Felker Martin, a trans writer working for DC, doing the new Red Hood series. And you can see here, kept seeing people tweet Red Hood 1 for suicide. And for the life of me, I could not figure out why until I remembered it opens with a bunch of cops shooting themselves. I just don't really consider them people. Now, I'm guessing that they're talking about police, but I guess they could be also talking about the people who were tweeting about it, or it could be both. That would not surprise me. But, this is where it begins. You can see this. And then, of course, what they said about the event that happened themselves. Thoughts and prayers, you Nazi bitch. Hope the bullet's okay after touching Charlie Kirk. Now, this is disgusting. And, in response, DC did what I consider the right thing. They've basically fired this person. They've cut all ties with them, and they've canceled the Red Hood series. All future issues will not be coming out, even ones that were already printed up, like probably issues 2 and 3 that are already at the printers and have been printed up. They will never see the light of day, and they have offered all retailers a complete refund on every copy of Red Hood #1 that they want to send back because they don't want any association with this. and they put out a statement. And I doubt that this person is going to get any further work at DC. I mean, with how corrupt this industry is, I can't say that for sure, but it looks like maybe this was bad enough that that's what the case will be. And if so, that's one little glimmer of hope, but as you're going to see here, it doesn't start with this. It didn't begin here. This isn't the beginning of something. This is the culmination of literal years of this kind of thing, and it always starts small. Here we are with Tamara Bonvillain. Comicsgate is trash, and you're trash if you support it in any way. So there is attacking consumers, attacking a portion of the audience who doesn't agree with them politically. And, it starts out small, just calling them trash and saying you're trash if you support it. So right there, dehumanizing language, you're trash, from another trans person, no less. Showing you that the mental illness of trans people is real. It's a mental illness. Then we go to Tim Sheridan, who's a gay man, and here he attacks the same types of people. Talking about Comicsgate, and he goes, "They're a hateful group of misogynist, queerphobic, racist a-holes who actually work to take down comics with any hint of diversity." So right there, just look at all the descriptors in there. More dehumanizing language, and even go to so far as to insult their intelligence. Saying that that they were complaining he didn't frame his desire for people to support his book by saying, "Read my story because it's good and you'll like it." I'd say that's implicit. If I had any confidence they knew what that word means. Well, we do know what that word means, Tim Sheridan. I do, certainly. I know what implicit is. So, but again, insulting their intelligence and denigrating them with all these terms. You see, dehumanizing. These people are lesser than. These people don't matter. And then we got Moose Bauman. Go fuck yourself, Nazi-ass clown. Someone says, they say, you seem to be nice, and go suck a dick. Which, again, this image here is going to be a woman. So telling a woman this, wouldn't that be misogyny? But yet, it's okay because evidently this person doesn't have the correct politics that Moose Bauman thinks they should have. And so, therefore, it's okay to attack this woman. You see, again, it's always dehumanizing. Just the hatred that they have for anyone that does not think like them. And then we have Fat Boy Tom Brevoort, being asked why having a small audience is desirable. And he goes, "I don't view that as desirable, but bigots can keep their money. Marvel's always been about inclusion and against intolerance. Well, except his intolerance to anyone who doesn't think the way he does." This is a man who attacked his own son on Twitter. And again, bigots can keep their money, and then they wonder why their industry's in the state it's in. Again, just driving people away, dehumanizing them, calling them the names that they know will get people to want to disassociate from them. It will sully them and their reputation. And then here's Steve White with attacking Eric July, saying, when they finally make America great again, I hope Eric July gets to be their house slave, not a field slave. He deserves something for being such a good little diversity shield. Again, these are the same people to tell you if you criticize Black culture because of the rampant criminality, or because of the fatherlessness, or because of the glorification of harmful things like shooting people and violence and drugs and rap songs. If you say these things, you're a racist. But here's this guy actually attacking a Black man, calling him a diversity shield and saying he should be a house slave and all these things. And yet somehow that isn't racism. But of course it is. Of course it is. But again, Eric July does not consign to what a person like Steve White believes a Black person should think. Because Black people are a monolith, don't you know? They all think the same. And if they don't, well, then there's something wrong with them. One of the most racist things I've heard in modern times is the term, he may be skin folk, but he ain't kin folk. As if somehow he's, you may have the same skin color, but you're not really that skin color. Like, you're not what that skin color represents or something. But that's ridiculous. Your skin color doesn't designate who you are as a person. It's just a physical qualifier to what you are. But it doesn't say who you are. But to someone like this, that's all it is. That's the insidiousness of this identity politics toxicity that is running rampant, not just through comics, but through games and everything else. And then we get to this guy here who attacked Eric July, saying, maybe I'd give you a chance if white nationalists weren't bootlicking you in the courts, referring to the fact that people he doesn't agree with are supporting Eric July's books and his company Rippaverse. which is kind of funny because, well, if Eric July is a black man, why would white supremacists want to support a black man's business? That makes absolutely no sense. But of course, you can't expect sense from these people. But the key here is the third bit right down here. And he goes, by white nationalists, I mean anyone on the right politically. I don't have time to distinguish between the Trump dick riders and people who like that little guy with a mustache. So right there, he's telling you, it doesn't matter what you really are. White nationalist is just a catch-all term for anyone I don't agree with. Whether you support Trump, or whether you're a Republican, or whether you believe in the little mustache man from Austria, it doesn't matter. You're all the same. You're all lumped in as one. Anyone who doesn't think the way I think they should, you're a white nationalist. Even though he goes up here to say that he doesn't think Eric is one, but yet Eric has some of the same views of the very people he's saying here. So wouldn't that mean Eric is a white nationalist? But yet he says he's not. You see, again, the mental gymnastics of these people that they use to dehumanize those they hate. This is where it all starts. This is how it all begins. It starts here. And then it goes further. Here's Scott Kurtz from PvP fame. And here is, if comic convention hosts or sells tables to people in Comicsgate, is it wrong for me to want to pressure them to kick out those people? Because I wanna. I really wanna. And this is him trying to get people at a show who he doesn't agree with politically kicked out because he hates them. Not because they're doing anything wrong at the show. Not because they're out there committing crimes or ripping people off or scamming anybody. Or no. It's not the reason he wants them out. It's just because he hates these people. Because they have laughed at him for his stupidity. Laughed at him for his hot takes of identity politics that makes him look like the fool he is. But rather than reflect on himself, go, maybe I shouldn't be doing those things. No, I got to get these people out. I hate them, so they must go. Now you start to see, first it's just dehumanizing language. Now you're starting to see, ostracization. It goes even further. Here's Stephanie Crook. Whisper networks are not enough. They only protect people in the know enough to talk to people with insider knowledge. We need to do better at driving shitty people out of the industry. What shitty people would that be? Would that be people like Stephanie Crook, who ripped off Bill Willingham for like $10,000 and then beat feet to Canada so she didn't have to suffer the legal ramifications of what she had done? Is it people like the ones I've just shown you here who are using dehumanizing language to the consumer base and to even people within the industry who they don't agree with? Is that the shitty people she wants to? No, of course not. She means people who, she doesn't agree with politically. They need to be driven out. But again, whisper networks. She's telling on you right here that we were told this is just a right-wing conspiracy. Whisper networks and blacklists. That's all that's a bunch of bigotry, a bunch of stupidity. It's a bunch of right-wing nonsense. And here she's saying that she's admitting it's true. And this is how it progresses every time. And it goes on even further. Here's Eric Larson. Once the vaccine is in active use, we're going to need to make sure anti-vaxxers and other numbskulls actually take it. And I think that's going to mean making unvaccinated people social pariahs by not allowing them to attend sporting events, enter bars, restaurants, theaters, etc. I wonder how he feels about this now, considering some of the information that has been leaking out recently about certain medications. I wonder how he feels about that now. But again, look at this. Because people don't agree with him, they must be social pariahs. They must be banned from everywhere. You see how it slowly escalates over time. Here's a couple of comic guys, and they go, yeah, racist, bigoted, homophobic, transphobic, misogynistic industry can fuck right off. Let the whole thing burn. Hell, I'd pour the gasoline and light the match myself. So these are supposed to be comic fans. I mean, these guys call themselves Blurred, which means black nerd, without fear. So I guess he's a Daredevil fan. And so here they are talking. Look at what they say about the industry itself, the terms that are used, the dehumanizing terms. So is anybody in the industry this? Is every single person who works in the industry a bigoted, homophobic, transphobic, misogynist? Is racist? Are they all that? Everybody? Oh no, not everybody. Just the ones Eric here disagrees with. And Blurred down here, He'd rather burn it all down. Now it's no longer just about, I disagree with people. Now it's not even ostracizing them. Now we have to destroy it all so that they can't have any access to it, so they can't be a part of it, so they can't have it at all. And he'd gladly do it himself, he said. But of course, he's not alone. You may say, well, this is just a couple of fanboys. Who cares what they think? There's a bunch of assholes talking trash. Maybe if you didn't have this. This is from a story with where they talked to a retailer named Ryan Higgins, who has a store called The Comic Conspiracy in California, the most leftist state in the union. And he says, just pure bigotry from many retailers these days. I'd prefer the whole industry burn tomorrow than side with them. Go back to whatever garbage Comicsgate has on Indiegogo and get out of the industry. Keep publishing this stuff. And by this stuff, he's talking about, making Iceman gay and Thor a woman and Tim Drake bi and, all these kinds, Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy into lovers. I mean, all this crazy degenerative stuff that has ruined the books, that has ruined the canon and the lore of classic characters. And he says, keep doing this. And, anyone who doesn't agree, well, that's just bigotry. That's just how it is. And here's a retailer calling to burn down the industry he relies on to make a living. That's how far gone these people are. They will destroy their very livelihoods if it means sticking it to those they hate. Of course, you couldn't go anywhere without King Baby Mark Wade, and he says the same thing. For those coming in late, what I said was when it comes to resolving the problems of a dwindling market, a lot of us would rather see the industry burn down than ally with the alt-right. If this statement enrages you, it says a lot more about you than it does about me. Except, no, it doesn't. It says you're the type who would destroy everything to stick it to people you hate. I mean, think about this. They're willing to destroy industries. And, if it burned the whole industry down, okay, you get the people you hate, but aren't you going to get a lot of people you don't? What about those people? What are they going to lose? But that's okay. It's an acceptable loss. You see, this is how they are. They're so focused on their hatreds of people who don't agree politically that they say things that just on the sheer face of them is just insanity. And here we go. Back in 2012. Take a note of this date. June of 2012. Over a decade ago. This is Gail Simone. The tent poles that hold up the industry are white, cis, straight, able-bodied, and male. It's okay to chip away at that. Yes, chip away at tent poles. Yes, set up a tent and chip away at the tent pole. See what that gets you. Is it any wonder their industry is in the state that it's in? But again, these people don't care. And look at what she says. She has picked out the targets. White, cis, straight, able-bodied, and male. Attack those people. Destroy those people. Kill those people. Do you think I'm going too far? I don't think I am. Not with what we've just seen. And it's what you're going to see coming up. Here's the classic one with good old King Baby Mark Wade, where he demanded that people at a show come to him if they see Richard C. Meyer, the famous diversity in comics guy that they all hate. If you see him at this show I'm at, even if I'm at a panel interrupted, come and get me because I want to go to him. And what's he going to do? What's he going to sit down and have a little chat with him? You're going to go to the commissary, have a couple cappuccinos? I don't think it is, because if you look at the one that follows this, you see right here how he says that, this goes very, very badly if I talk to the wrong guy. Well, why would it go badly if it's just talk? You're going to go up to a guy and start telling him, hey, you shouldn't say these things. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I'm sorry, I got the wrong guy. How is that going badly? All you did was what? Confuse a guy for 5 seconds? No, see, it goes badly because it's not going to be talk. That's why it's come get me, no matter what I'm doing, no matter, even at a panel, come get me. Because it's not going to be talk. It's going to be something else. This is a veiled threat of violence. And the fact that he says it will go badly if it's the wrong guy, that's why it's a threat of violence. Because that's how it goes. See, but as long as it would be Richard C. Meyer he did it on, well, that's perfectly justified. But if it was someone else, the wrong guy, oh, well, that would be badly on me. I'll be in a lot of trouble for that. That wouldn't be justified. You see, again, when they hate you, anything is justifiable in their minds. That's how dangerous they are. Then we got more from good old King Baby Mark Wade. To David Gabriel's enormous credit that he somehow chooses every day not to put his fist through Jude Terror's smug ass face. Now, Jude Terror, for those of you who don't know, is a person who was in the comic book media, and I use that term very loosely. And he is a smug asshole. But what's Wade saying here? That if he had to interact every day with Jude Terror, he would put his fist through his face? I mean, again, an open threat of violence. You see how it keeps building up. And here's more from Mark Wade. For the foreseeable future, anyone who starts a sentence with the words, "the problem with comics is," as if there's only one problem and it can be fixed with the magic bullet you're about to present, can find me in my backyard next to the wood chipper. I mean, what else can you take from that? This is not the words of someone who's in their right mind. This is a person who is a danger to themselves and others. Because people state what their prescription to the problem in comics is, and you don't agree, so therefore they gotta end up in your wood chipper? I mean, what? But that brings us to the biggest point now. And you can see how you can see I've been showing you slowly over time, more and more. It's been getting more and more egregious, building up, just ever going higher and higher, the temperature rising. And now we reach near the crescendo. Here's Rollover Queen, who goes, "It's going to take EVS not being here anymore for the comic book community to move on from him." I'm going to read that to you again. It's going to take EVS not being here anymore for the comic book community to move on from him. And this is just less than 2 years ago. Not being here anymore. What does that mean? I mean, there's only one way to read that, isn't there? I mean, not being here. Now it's veiled death threats, veiled acts of wanton murder. This is where they go, and it just gets worse. If you're just tuning in, here's Mark Wade again. If you're just tuning in, some fucking idiot with shitty eyesight just clinched the election for Trump. Fuck. Praise that the shooter was wearing a RFK Jr. t-shirt. This is when they tried to assassinate President Trump a little over a year ago. And this is his reaction. And I wish I could say that this is just some one-off from a Looney Tune, but there were many others who also said similar things to this, and probably even more who, if they didn't say it, they certainly felt this way. They're upset that an assassin didn't succeed in killing the now president, and that they pray that the shooter was wearing something that would not make him associated with people on the left like Mark Wade. That's their concern. Not that someone was nearly murdered, for political reasons, political murder. No, that's not what they're worried about. What they're worried about is like, well, he failed, and now it might come back on us because that's what we want to happen. Do you see how it escalates? And then, of course, that brings us to the biggest of all. And here's Eric Larson. Donald Trump being executed for treason on the White House lawn is the closure America needs to start the healing process. Now, given what we just saw in the event that we all know what just happened, I wonder what Eric thinks of this tweet now. I wonder what he thinks. Does he even think about it? I'm not sure, but whatever the case, here we are. This is where it goes. And now you see where it's led. So when you saw what happened, this event that just took place, it's been going on for a while. There have been people calling for these things in this industry and in many others, in video games, in the movies and television, in the news media, in the realm of politics, everywhere. It's infected with this sickness, this darkness of soul. These people who think that their political viewpoint is the only correct one, and anything and anyone that does not subscribe to that must be destroyed. That's why what happened, it just happened. That's why it just happened, what we just saw. That's why it happened. This mindset. And as you saw, it just slowly progresses. It goes from unkind comments, labeling people, dehumanizing language, to then trying to ostracize them and kick them out of society, to threats of violence, to advocating for political murder. And this is not new. You saw these tweets. They're from, again, the one from Gail Simone was from 2012. That's 13 years of this has been going on. And I and many others, guys like Nerdrotic and Ash from Heel versus Babyface, Critical Drinker, Wes from Critical Thinking, and tons of others. We've been out here talking about this for so long. And, so when it happened, when what happened, we weren't shocked, the way so many normies and so many other you out there might have been shocked, because we've been seeing this building for some time now. We've been seeing the direction this is going. And, no one wanted to stop it. No one in the industries wanted to stop it. No one outside of the industry, nobody wanted to stop it. Aside from a few of us who were calling it out and trying to get people to pay attention. And now look at where we are. This is very disheartening. This is very worrisome. And, I fear for where the future goes, not just because of what happened to Charlie Kirk and what that may mean, both in terms of the reaction and the comeuppance that will follow it, but just where are these people going to go next? It's always the same. They attack you, they try to ostracize you, they try to push you to suicide, like they did Ed Piskor just a little over a year ago. Ed Piskor exited this plane of existence by his own hands, but he was pushed by people just like these that I've shown you here today. And now even that's not enough for these people. Now they, before they were okay with that because it doesn't put the blood on their hands. And, when Piskor did kill himself, the people who he named in his final note went out of their way to try to disassociate. Oh, I'm not responsible. I didn't do it. I didn't make that happen. That's not my fault. But now, just a year later, when we saw what happened to Charlie Kirk, and they're celebrating this. They're wishing they were the ones that were holding the gun that did it. Where do we go from here? Where do they go from here? I've always felt, that it's important to talk about these things. That's why I did my sequential thinking live streams for the last few years. I always said that I did them because I thought it was important to talk about these things, to get them out in the open, because that's how you diffuse them. You got to talk about them. That's again something Charlie Kirk was all about. That's why he had the debates at the colleges and other places that he went, because he knew the best way to stop this mentality is to talk, is to get people talking, to get people, even if you disagree, just talking, because it humanizes the people that you would hate. It makes them less something to be seen as an impediment and something human. The people you're talking about aren't just bigots and Nazis and racists. They're human beings. And that's why I always felt it was important to talk about these things. But I don't know if that's enough anymore. Not with where we are now. I mean, now I think maybe it's time for some action. And, I would have to call upon the companies, and I don't mean just like Marvel or DC, because, they're owned by big conglomerates. The people who are the quote unquote heads at Marvel and DC, they're idiots. They don't know what they're doing. They don't care. They're the ones who let these people into the industry. They're the ones who give them their jobs. People like Gretchen Falker Martin. They give these people their jobs. So they're not going to change anything. We need to hit them where it hurts. So you got to go after the parent companies, the Disneys, the Discovery Warners. You have to go after them, and you have to tell them, change this. It has to change. You cannot let this stand. You cannot. It's not just about bad stories anymore, or just destroying canon and lore and characters. It's not about insulting your audiences and driving them away. It's not about any of this. It's about this. It's about how all of that leads to this. It leads to what we just saw happen live. And it has to change. It has to stop. And it's not going to, so long as you allow these people, these platforms, so long as you allow them into these industries to perpetuate and to self-aggrandize themselves, to network, to destroy everything that matters to people who don't think like them. And you know, it's funny, but the true antidote to this is simply this. Eric July. And if you don't like my politics, you can still buy my book. I'll still have you as a customer. This is it. That's all. This is a man who, he has his political views, but he doesn't let it dominate everything he is. And he doesn't do it to the point that he then dehumanizes anyone who doesn't think like he does. And even if you don't agree with him, he still wants you around. He doesn't want you dead. He doesn't want violence put upon you. This is what we need. And we're not going to get it if we just keep sitting back and taking it, waiting for these dark-hearted people to wake up to their humanity. Now you say, well, so what are you saying, James? What should we do? I don't know. Maybe letters. Write letters to the people in the corporations. Tell them what we want. Boycott them. Not just the comics, not just Marvel and DC or whatever, but all products, all Disney products, all Discovery Warner products. Say, we'll boycott everything. We will bring your corporation to its knees unless you get change in here. And the first change is you have to kick out the activists, these activist assholes who have so infected all these industries with their hate and their vile, disgusting, toxic ideology. They have to go. And you need to have people in here who will do the right thing. If your job, if your business is entertainment, that's what you do, not activism, not political screeds and preaching, not castigating people who don't think like you think. You stick to your lane and do your job. That's what needs to happen. And it's not going to happen unless we give them reason to make it happen. So that's, I guess, what I'm calling for. That's the solution. So, you know, I just felt it was important to say this, to get that out there. You know, like I said, there have been a lot of people, myself and others, who I named just a few of them earlier, who have been sounding the alarm bell. But it's long past time for just listening to us kvetch. It's time to do something now. It's gone too far. When political assassination is championed and called for and desired by a sect of society, that society cannot stand. It will fall. And we can't let that happen. Like I said, I've talked about comics, and you might think that that's not an important thing, but it is. The stories we tell about ourselves, about our people, it matters. You know, back in the day, Homer with the Odyssey, with guys like Ulysses and Hercules and, you know, all the pantheon of the Greek gods, it mattered then. Those stories, that's why they're still around today. They mattered. They had a resonance that was important. And these are no different. You may think comics are silly, and maybe they are, but they're the stories we tell ourselves. They're the stories that speak of our culture, of who we are as a people. And that these people, the ones I've shown you here today, are the ones in charge of that. making the books, promoting the books, selling the books. You know, what kind of world are we going to have with them in charge, with them with their hands on the levers? We need to think about that. We need to, I don't know, to focus and see what's really happening, because it's not enough to just complain about it. There needs to be action taken, and I hope soon that there is, for the sake of the industry, for the sake of society, for the sake of this culture we all live in. Because if what just happened keeps happening, there won't be anything left for anyone. Just a little sobering thought for you guys as I bring this to a conclusion. And this will probably be the last time I bring up the incident in any videos. I don't want to belabor that point too much. But I'll come back with something soon, something a little more positive, which I think Charlie would like. I think Charlie would also not want us to dwell on what happened to him, but to try to find the good out there too, to have some good things for people, because that's also important. You know, something that I've tried to do here with things I've posted in the past is positive things, fun things, because, you know, if we don't have a little fun, if we don't have a little joy at things, you see where it leads. And that's certainly not something I want. I know it's not anything that Charlie would have wanted. So I'll be back soon with some more stuff, something fun, something more lighter than the last couple of videos have been. But I thank you all for joining me today. I hope that this has helped, you know, give you something to think about. And, you know, maybe some of you out there can come and think up some ideas of some actions we can take to try to resolve this, because, like I said, things cannot stand like this. They cannot go on the way they have been going on for so long. It needs to change. It needs to change for all our sakes. So that'll about do it. And I'll be back soon with some more stuff. And so until next time, take care.